Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Democrats are calling for the overthrow of President Trump as commander-in-chief. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I don't get out to Bellevue as much as I used to, but I was out there today for a doctor's appointment. Don't worry, I'm fine. Everything's fine. But I was driving back across 520. And as I'm driving back across 520 and seeing the beautiful view that we have on a sunny day like this, I remember looking out at the city and thinking, where are all the construction cranes? Years ago, you would be driving through Seattle and there were construction cranes everywhere. Now it's kind of funny. You know that picture you see from space of North Korea and South Korea? And in North Korea, you have all the lights are off. There's no power at night. But South Korea, it's a thriving, bustling country because one picked communism, dictatorship, and the other one picked capitalism. It's kind of like that with Seattle and Bellevue. There's an angle from my house where you can see both downtown Seattle and downtown Bellevue, and there was a time there where you saw less and less cranes in Seattle and more cranes in Bellevue as businesses were moving out of Seattle and over to Bellevue. Well, now it's even worse than that. Now you're not seeing any cranes in Seattle at all. Do you know there is an over 30% rental vacancy in office real estate in downtown Seattle? Now, a lot of people want to say, well, Ari, that's because of the pandemic. And that's because a lot more people are remote working. I'm not going to say that's not one of the contributing factors, but it's not the contributing factor because other cities have bounced back after that. Why haven't we? It's because so many jobs picked up and left Seattle. Now, when you have these socialists that say they just want to tax Amazon or Microsoft or Starbucks or whatever the case may be, those companies aren't going to stay here forever. They're tired of being kicked around, including lefty companies like Starbucks, Amazon, and Microsoft. They've had it. They've had it. It went from, we want to be nice and we want to be socially conscious too. You guys just want to burn us to the ground and take all our stuff. And we don't want to do it anymore. Whenever these lefty activists, like the ones who are still protesting against Starbucks, whenever they say they want to take down these companies, we want to redistribute their wealth, the companies say, bye. How many empty Starbucks locations are there in downtown Seattle now? Anytime Seattle says, oh, we're always evaluating our portfolio, they're tired of being broken into, they're tired of being robbed, and they're tired of employees who are going to walk out the drop of a hat. They're tired of being vandalized anytime somebody feels there's been some social injustice, so they come and break in their windows. Why is it the Starbuckses have closed all over downtown Seattle and they haven't closed in other places? You want to explain that one to me? Yeah, there's still Starbucks here. There are still Starbucks in Seattle. I'm not going to say they're all gone, but two of the most profitable Starbucks near a tourist attraction at Pike Place Market, gone, completely gone. Here's something else. When you drive down 4th Avenue, when you drive down 5th Avenue, when you drive past Pacific Place, these places are empty. Empty. It was easier for me to count how many places are still in business versus how many places are closed up. Because as you drive down the streets here in Washington, here in Seattle, we're turning into San Francisco. I got a call today from a certain outlet. It's a secret for now which outlet it is. And the outlet's doing a story on how socialism destroyed Seattle. And I am more than happy to oblige showing them exactly what happened. We are literally the living example of the Laffer curve. What's the Laffer curve? The Laffer curve says that at a certain point, when taxes are too high, people just stop paying them. Whether they say, I'm just not going to pay them for my car tabs, or they say, I'm getting out of here entirely, we have reached that point where so many businesses say we're out of here. And when all these lefty activists celebrate the fact that Amazon left, well, every Amazonian had a barber shop they went to, and a grocery store they went to, and a mechanic that they went to. And now those guys have less customers. I love when they say, whether it's Katie Wilson or Zora Mamdani, we're on the side of small business. By killing big business, you are killing small businesses. And no matter how many art installations or art galleries you put up in downtown Seattle, Bruce Harrell, it's not going to cover up for the fact of all the empty storefronts, more and more tents, more and more zombies, and I see it every single day. Every single day when I come down here. I was having an argument with somebody else who works around here, and they're like, oh, you just want to make socialism the boogeyman. You just want to make Seattle the boogeyman. No. The Democrats serve that up to me on a silver platter. We have been living in Kshama Sawant's socialist nightmare for years now. Who wanted the tax on Amazon? Who wanted the tax on high-paid employees? Who wanted the minimum wage? Who wanted all of these policies? Who wanted to defund police? Congratulations. You played yourselves. There's a new report out right now from Como News. Single Seattle residents, that's somebody living on their own, need to make $135,000 a year to live comfortably in Seattle, Washington. That's the 6th highest in the United States of America. According to the outlet, the figure ranks as the 6th highest among large metro areas in the United States, according to research conducted by Upgraded Points using data from the Economic Policy Institute and the U.S. Census Bureau. The study highlights the growing economic pressures on American families as essentials like rent, groceries, and childcare have become increasingly expensive. Why is rent more expensive? Well, you're taxing every single landlord. Also, you're not building enough. Also, why are groceries more expensive? Well, when you put a tax on gas and everything gets here by truck, that's going to happen. Also, where does all your food come from? And when the farmers need to pay more to go harvest their products, et cetera, then that's going to cost you more. All these things are becoming more and more expensive. That's all thanks to the Democrats. These are all their bad policies. The latest economic numbers are out. Washington State is facing another $1 billion shortfall in its budget. What are the two main drivers of this? And we talked to Travis Couture yesterday about it. The first one is their B&O tax. They didn't bring in enough money from businesses. Why do you think that is? How many of them left? Number two, they're not bringing in enough money from construction. Why do you think that is? Because Bob Ferguson now signed the bill for rent control, which the Democrats passed. So people say, forget it. I'm not building here. Why would I build here? Which also leads back to the construction cranes. Why would anybody in their right mind build here? It makes no sense. So if you've got over 30% office vacancy rate, and on top of that, you've got nobody building here, and on top of that, you got people moving out, congratulations, guys, you killed the golden goose. I should say the golden geese. Starbucks could move their corporate headquarters at any time. That means their administrative staff, gone, goodbye. This is what has been done by the Democrats. And when they talk about small businesses closing, all right, let's do this. You guys claim you're all in favor of small businesses, helping small businesses. According to Cairo 7, Pike Place Brewing will close its longtime Pike Pub and Pike Fish Bar near the Pike Place Market on November 30th. CEO Matt Lincecum said the traditional pub model has become increasingly difficult to sustain, and the closure was a necessary business decision. The tap room, a fixture since 1989, will offer discounted beers on its final day of service. Pike Brewing will continue producing its beer lineup and will keep operating its location inside the Summit Seattle Convention Center. The Seattle Hospitality Group, which acquired Pike Brewing in 2021 and purchased Fremont Brewing in 2024, also holds stakes in Kenmore Air and Ethan Stowell restaurants. They said they are literally doing this because of the economic factors here in Seattle. They are calling it like it is. It's because of the economic factors here. They say it's difficult to sustain. It's a necessary business decision. And that's why they're out of here. Skillets, another restaurant chain, they're closing up around here. Do you know why all this is? How many restaurants? Is there a Nike store downtown anymore? Where's the Cheesecake Factory? Where are all these places that used to be downtown? We're going to have the World Cup coming here, and people are going to want to go to restaurants, and there's not going to be any around. You know what's all that's going to be left? illegal food vendors on the streets because of these terrible, terrible, terrible policies. It doesn't just affect restaurants. Providence, Swedish layoffs are the latest in a wave of job cuts around the Puget Sound. Well, if there's less people living here and there's less of those techies living here, there's less doctors you need around here. Also, people are opting not to go because they think it's too expensive right now. This is all connected. This is all symbiotic relationships. And what did King County do? King County says, yeah, we know we can't really afford things, but we're going to keep funding that movie theater on Harbor Island. That movie production, the movie studio place. Seattle just passed a $8.9 billion city budget, doubling down on housing homelessness. Great. Houses for the drug addicts, apartments for the drug addicts, hotels for the drug addicts. You and me are the ones paying for it because all the businesses are leaving. This is the mess they have made of Washington, and they were warned about this. In 2019, the Republicans said to the Democrats, we have a surplus. If you keep spending the way you are spending, we're going to be in trouble. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Bob Ferguson will raise taxes again. Remember last year? Oh, look, he's pretending to be a moderate in his inaugural address. Oh, he wants to work with everybody, and taxes aren't the way to solve anything. Blah, blah, blah. Lies. All lies. He's going to do it again. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to blame it on Trump. They're going to blame it on tariffs. They're going to blame it on everything you could possibly imagine. They're not going to look in the mirror, or they're going to look in the mirror and say, we don't want the blame for this. Let's blame the Republicans. There's some fascinating polling out right now on 2026. It looks like right now, according to polling, that the Republicans lost the shutdown battle. Why is that? Because the mainstream media helped the Democrats push that narrative, even though we all know it's not true. The generic congressional ballot has the Republicans getting clobbered in 2026. Now, I look at this as more of a cautionary tale, not a future predictor, because that's not how we do elections. You vote for an individual congressperson. So when they say the socialists swept in the last election, no, Katie Wilson would have lost if you had somebody good to run against. Zohran Mamdani would have lost if it wasn't Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa actually dropped out of the race. You got to look at these things individually. But that's not good news for Republicans. President Trump, at one of his lowest ratings of this term, of this time in office, of this administration. Why is that? He's being brought down by the Epstein stuff, which is why the Democrats are hammering on it. Now, this polling tells us something interesting. Who are the ones pushing the Epstein stuff? It didn't start with the Democrats. It's the people on our side. People like Steve Bannon still out there screaming about it, and he's in the files working with Jeffrey Epstein. We're destroying our own side. You've got all these podcasters on the right, and the Democrats go, hey, wait a minute, if they're doing this, let's just pick up the ball and run with it. And that's exactly what happened. The Democrats here are going to run on blaming all the economic stuff on Donald Trump. But if you look nationally, all the economic indicators are actually good. Did you see the jobs numbers today? Let's go to CNBC, who's definitely not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy.
This is the September jobs report. Non-farm payrolls are up a robust 119,000. 119,000 would be the best since April, when we were up 158,000. If we look at labor force participation rate, it ticked up. That's a good thing. 62.4 equals where we were in May. You have to go to April of this year when it was 62.6 to find a higher number. If we look at the hours worked, and this is always important, it remains at 34.2. To find a lower number, you're going to January when it was 34.1. We have initial jobless claims. This is for the week of November 15th. As I said, there's weeks missing. We're expecting 227,000. Comes in at 220,000. These numbers do not reflect nervousness in the labor market. They've been very well behaved. 220,000 would be the lowest level of claims since mid-July.
In fact, These numbers are jobs going to Americans, not illegal aliens also. Here's something else. The left was trying to make hay out of this. They said the unemployment numbers are up. Well, if the economy's so good, why is the unemployment numbers up? Because more people are looking for jobs, because we're saying, you lazy turds who are getting all these handouts from the government, you don't get the handouts from the government anymore if you don't need them. Go to work. So now there's more people looking for jobs. Because there's more people not working in the less people working in the federal government, more of those people are looking for real jobs. And the jobs that are being created, unlike the Biden administration, where they were being created by the federal government, they're being created by companies. But not here in Washington. Do you know they are projecting 0% job growth? 0% job growth here in Washington. Years ago, I used to go recruiting for the Jewish community here in Seattle. Because you always want more people. You want more Jews. We want to bring more people here. I want more kosher restaurants. I've told you how bad the kosher restaurants are here many, many times. So I'd always go to this convention of, they call them out-of-town communities, which means anybody who's not in New York. That's in town. And I would always go and say, hey, here's my Amazon recruiter. Here's my Microsoft recruiter. You want to work for any of these companies? People would always say, I didn't know all those companies are in Seattle. Now they don't have to move here to work for those companies. Now those companies are doing layoffs here. They're hiring elsewhere. They're doing layoffs here because of the taxes, because of the cost of living. Why hire anybody here? These are all self-inflicted wounds by the Democrats, and they're only going to get worse. But there is hope, my friends, and I'll tell you what it is. What we have to do is louder than them scream how this is the Democrats' fault. We have to be on every media outlet, every platform, and we have to be united in the fact of, try blaming Trump for this. You guys have been doing this since what, 2010, 2012? And look what your socialist, disastrous policies have done. You need to talk to your friends. You need to get out there, and I'm going to tell you something else. Right now, you know the reason we lost a lot of these elections in the last swing? It wasn't because of a socialist wave here in Washington. These numbers didn't add up. I said we've won before. It's because conservatives didn't show up to vote. The Democrats have discouraged all of us from voting. They've discouraged us from being involved. Too many of us are going voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud, and not even showing up to vote. Katie Wilson won by 1,976 votes. That's it. A lot of us didn't even show up to vote for Bruce Harrell. So, you look at what's going on here. There is a path to victory. There's a path for marketing. There is a path. But the problem is you have to draw that line for a lot of people who don't understand economics. And you have to overcome the loud noise of the mainstream, lamestream media that's going to keep repeating the talking points. And look how they affected Republicans nationally. We just won the shutdown battle, but they're bringing us down, and people on our side aren't helping at all. It's ridiculous. Tonight, I'm going to be out with Scott Pressler in Kent, Washington. The details are up at the GOP website. I'm going to be out there registering people to vote because I don't believe on giving up on Washington yet. I know a lot of other people are saying I'm moving. This is my home. I don't want to go anywhere. I like it here. Why should I leave because they suck? No, we're going to fix this place. But you have to be united in your voice. And you have to say, here is what is causing it. You have to draw a straight line, just like I did. That between the minimum wage hikes, between the tax hikes, between the crime, between everything that's affecting every business owner in Seattle, they don't want to be here anymore. And you know the businesses aren't going to come back just because we win one election. You need to win a few elections. And this place didn't become socialist in one election. I told this media outlet that contacted me today about coming out here. They said, we want to talk about how Katie Wilson is turning the whole place socialist. I go, Seattle's been socialist since Kshama Sawant years ago, where Democrats decided, let's go down the socialist rabbit hole and see what we get on the other end. Guys, I know how this ends. People don't flee the United States unless they're celebrities, and even they don't flee the United States. People flee communist socialist countries in rowboats. Why is nobody fleeing the United States in rowboats? Why is nobody taking a 57 Chevy, turning it into a boat to try and get from Cuba to Florida? There's a reason for that. People don't flee places which are successful. We can turn this around. But the only way we turn this around is by drawing that outline, and it just took me 18 minutes to do that, to explain that to you. You have to have the conversations with your friends. You have to talk to them about it. And anybody who told you can't talk politics at the Thanksgiving table has never been to my house for Thanksgiving. That's what we do. And we have fun at each other's expense. We're going into the holiday season. Talk politics. It doesn't mean it has to be acrimonious. It doesn't mean it has to be controversial. It doesn't mean it has to be contentious. You can have these conversations over a drink. You can have these conversations over a scotch. You can have these conversations over a beer at the Pike Place. Oh, no, wait. Can't have it at the Pike Place Market anymore. So if you want to put this place back on track, it's about the economy, stupid. That's what it's always about. And you have to show how these terrible, disastrous Democrat principles are what did this. And you know they're going to come for us with an income tax. And then nobody's coming here anymore. Because where would you rather live? A state that has no income tax or a state that has income tax? That has been our last saving grace. And Democrats are already teeing it up for this legislative session. You can fix this. You can turn this around. You can. But it's going to take a full effort, and it's going to take everybody having these discussions. Including in these discussions is about public safety. And when we come back, my friends, we will take your phone calls. Plus, looks like Seattle is finally admitting how bad the policing numbers are. We'll tell you how bad they are when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app. We sometimes get shadow banned on other platforms, so the KVI app is always the best way to listen to the show when you're not listening to the radio. Download the KVI app right now. For those of you on Spotify, that's what seemingly is the problem. We don't know what's going on over there, but we're trying to fix it. So subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We really do appreciate it. But definitely download the KVI app or listen to KVI.com. And over at KVI.com, you can get a brand new exclusive story that I just put up today, which you will hear later in the show. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Lou in Linden. Lou, what's up?
Hey, Ari. Yeah, I just want to remind everybody today, this week is the 36th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And as you know, Ronald Reagan was instrumental and key in that because he pushed the Soviet Union over the brink into bankruptcy, and they could no longer maintain their military. And over 100 million people in Eastern Europe were liberated from Soviet domination. And even in Russia, the people were liberated. They banned the Communist Party in Russia back in the early 1990s. And one of the most important people in that was our boy from Everett, Washington, Senator Henry Jackson.
Scoop Jackson.
Henry Jackson, Democrat senator. He passed the Jackson-Vanik Amendment in 1977, which tied Russia, the Soviet Union's ability to buy corn and wheat and grain from soybeans from us, tying it to the human rights violations they've been doing. So we put a lot of pressure on them, eliminating their technology procurement from us because of their human rights violations. And Senator Jackson was key to that.
Remember when Democrats used to support America? That's how long it's been.
Yeah. Well, you know, Henry Jackson was an anti-communist, and he was a big Boeing supporter, and he got hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts to Boeing in the fight against the Soviet Union and communism, the Cold War. And Senator Jackson, I think, gave his life for his country. He was so angry at the Russians when they shot down a Korean airliner, killing many Americans, including an American congressman, that Senator Jackson had a press conference, and he denounced the Soviet Union for their cruel and barbaric shooting down of a commercial airline. And then he died an hour later from a massive heart attack.
May have worked himself up. Maybe that's a cautionary tale for me. I need to calm down on the radio. Lou, let me ask you, when that Berlin Wall fell, which side did people run to? Do you remember?
I think they all dug a hole in the ground and hid in it. I don't know.
No, they ran to the side where there's democracy and freedom. They ran away from the socialism. They ran away from the communism. Like my point earlier, Lou, thanks for the historical lesson. Do appreciate it. And yes, by the way, I remember when the Berlin Wall fell. I was a kid. I remember I was hearing about it on the radio as my parents were driving me to school. I remember when that happened. I remember David Hasselhoff going out there performing on top of the Berlin Wall. Love me some David Hasselhoff and some Knight Rider. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, people forget about these things. Do you think the reason that so many people have such fond impressions of socialism is because they don't remember any of this? They don't know about any of this? My kids don't know about this stuff. Your kids probably don't know about this stuff. Your grandkids probably don't know about this stuff. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. You know, you brought up a case in point here last segment regarding all these businesses in downtown Seattle possibly moving out. Mm-hmm. Well, now with Katie Wilson running the whole show to replace Bruce Harrell, I think the only businesses you're going to start seeing downtown are going to be the ones with homeless beggars on them.
No, I think what you're going to start seeing downtown is what we see with these places that help the homeless that are funded with our taxpayer dollars, like all these outreach centers. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I mean, guys, people are blowing up my text line right now, absolutely blowing up my text line. And Kelly in Seattle says, Ari, it's great that you're reporting on this, but since the local news doesn't report on this, what are conservative PACs who could do some commercials to educate people? You know what I say? I say that anybody who is running for office who's a conservative, any party, any PAC, all you should be spending your money on is ballot harvesters and advertising. That is it. Not political consultants, nothing else, not staff. That is all you should be spending your money on. I will give you all your political consulting for free. But you never see commercials for any of this kind of stuff. People are wasting their money on campaign consultants. Look at Bruce Harrell. Bruce Harrell blew all his money on these campaign consultants. And where did it get him? Nowhere. They gave him terrible, horrible, absolutely horrible advice. Didn't work out at all. Didn't work out at all. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including Seattle finally admitting how bad the numbers are at the Seattle Police Department. And why are they admitting it now? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I'll tell you, we have the best listeners. We have the best audience because they send us the best tips. One of our listeners sent us this report where the city of Seattle was trying to justify why it needed traffic cameras rather than cops. Well, why it needed traffic cameras. Buried in this report, buried deep, 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 pages and pages and pages and pages in, we found this. Explain the reason the project technology is being created or updated and why basically funding is required. Quote, the city's police staffing crisis, now in its fourth year, has resulted in over 700 officers departing SPD since 2019. As of January 2024, 913 police officers are available for deployment in the city, the lowest number of in-service officers since 1991, and significantly below per capita staffing relative to comparative jurisdictions. Low staffing levels also affect investigations, which hinder police effectiveness in solving cases and holding violent criminals accountable. Now, you may say, Ari, why is this news? You've been saying this literally for years. Ever since you started doing the show. We've known this. Yeah, but Seattle's never admitted it. In fact, they would always downplay it. In fact, they would always demonize people like Mike Solon. Don't listen to the head of the Seattle Police Officers Guild. That guy is crazy. Mike has been saying this for years, literally 4 years. So why is Seattle admitting this now? This report wasn't done yesterday. It wasn't done because Bruce Harrell's mad and wants to get back at Katie Wilson. No. Seattle, King County, Washington State love doing this, where they actually admit the facts when they want to use it to get money. That's when they actually admit the facts, because then they can say how bad things are. The first time I saw them do this was when I was getting politically involved back in 2018. King County, City of Seattle, were both saying in lawsuits against Purdue Pharma and Johnson & Johnson, other big pharma companies, about the opioid crisis. They were saying over 80% of the people on the streets of Seattle have a substance abuse problem. And then when they get called out on it, they never want to admit that was actually true. Was it Bob Ferguson or Dan Satterberg? One of them was giving a presser one day, got called out on those statistics. I gotta look that up. Gotta look it up. And then wouldn't you know it, disappeared, erased from existence. So Seattle is finally admitting it because they want to adopt this camera system. Well, the camera system is not going to be around long because after Redmond and Auburn and all these other places are saying, oh my God, ICE might use our camera system. Not sure how quickly they're getting it. But for years, they have downplayed what Mike Solon, the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, has said. They have lied about their own numbers, and then you find them in something like this. Losing 700 officers, having only 913 available. Let me put this in context for you. That was, when you put those two numbers together, that was their minimum staffing requirement. That was below their minimum staffing requirement in 2019. So when they had that many officers, the 700 plus the 900, so you're looking at about 1,600 police officers, they were still well below minimum staffing requirements. And then they went ahead, Seattle City Council, and voted to defund the police and took the side of the Antifa, ridiculous crazies, and BLM in the autonomous zone. You literally had Dan Strauss, Teresa Mosqueda, Lisa Herbold, all those guys marching against their own police officers inside the autonomous zone. Outside on the streets, in the riots that led to the autonomous zone, which is beyond crazy. There's pictures of it. There's video of it. And Dan Strauss is going to be running for mayor in the next time, guaranteed. He's going to think he's going to be the new Bruce Harrell. And those of you who say, oh my God, he's going to be so much better than Katie Wilson, we have to support Dan Strauss. I am going to make sure that picture of him on the line with Antifa is burned into as many billboards as I can find. Oh, you're helping Katie Wilson. No, I want somebody real to run. There's actually somebody over here on the text line that says I should run. That's very nice of you guys. I did that one time. The death threats were very, very exciting. So they're finally admitting it, which means we have a long way to go. You think Katie Wilson is going to get more police officers, or you think more of them are going to retire? What do you think's about to happen? We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Dave in Puyallup. Dave, what's up?
Ari, how are you today? It's always a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
You're the top of the streams in the wilderness. You know what I'm saying?
That's very kind of you. Thank you, sir.
I want to talk to you about a truth. Now, I have stage 4 cancer.
I'm sorry.
I went to my oncologist to try, and he's been trying to get me into different doctors to do specific testing and everything. Well, those doctors are not available simply because they're trying to regulate the doctors, and they're regulating the doctors, and the doctors are leaving their professions here in Seattle to go to a different state so that they can operate and without being regulated. Having said that, once again, I'm trying to get another doctor, and they told me, this is just continually escalating. I'm trying to get it to this one doctor, and they just called me and told me it's going to be 4 months before they can even get me in. That's how crazy. You know what? They've killed not only killed the cash cow, but they're literally killing Washington State. They're killing it.
You know, there was a relative of mine that had cancer last year, and this relative couldn't get the appointments they needed because they were so backlogged. This isn't a new problem. It's been happening for a while because there's Obamacare factors, there's local factors, there's a whole bunch of factors, and they've only made the problem infinitely worse. Dave, I'm so sorry to hear that. I really, really am. How's your prognosis?
Well, actually, you know what? I've gone to a couple of holistic doctors. I'm taking medications that seem to be working, and I'm fighting this. I'm going to continue to fight it until whatever happens. So,
well, I'll tell you this, is that a friend of mine recently had stage 4 cancer. I don't know what kind you have. You don't have to tell me on the phone. But he said there was a lot of effectiveness with the sonic treatment they do, not the hedgehog. You don't have coins going everywhere, but the sonic stuff they do to break up tumors. He said that was very, very effective for him. He thought he was going to die, and it turned him around. I don't know if that's applicable, but maybe give it a go.
Yep. I'm looking at all aspects. I'm not averse to pulling out the stops and find anything that'll work. It won't cause me a third eye or an arm.
Well, Dave, I'll tell you, the thing we say in my religion is refuah shlema, wishing you a speedy and full and complete recovery. Thank you so much for the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your texts, plus... holy cow, it looks like the Democrats are trying to lead a deadly insurrection against President Trump. We'll tell you exactly what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The Democrats put out some bait for President Trump, and unfortunately, he took the bait. A bunch of Democrats who, most of them, in fact, all but one of them you probably haven't heard of before, were trying to make a name for themselves and trying to get President Trump off message. By the way, the Epstein stuff, this latest stunt, if they keep Trump off message, then guess what? His polls go down and they see it's working, so they're going to keep doing this. So these Democrats who served in the armed forces are literally telling service members not to obey orders from the commander-in-chief. This is the commercial they put together.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Sounds like they're calling for a deadly insurrection. Sounds like they're calling for people to disobey the commander-in-chief. Sounds like that's exactly what they're doing. Imagine if, Dan Crenshaw and a few people like that came out with a commercial like this during the Biden administration. Holy cow! You would have had the left screaming and yelling, they're trying to overthrow the government again. It's another deadly insurrection. They're trying to depose the president. You probably haven't heard of most of those members of Congress. You might have heard of Mark Kelly, the spaceman, because his wife got shot because he was an astronaut. That's it. The rest of them, you probably don't know who they were. This was designed to be clickbait for Senator Alyssa Slotkin and the others. It's basically her saying, hey, I want to run for president, or I want to run for something else. That's what this was. And unfortunately, President Trump took the bait, saying now he wants to prosecute all of them. By the way, you might have a case for that. But prosecuting them is putting them on trial. These guys are saying refuse an order. You don't get to do that. There are things you can do in the military. You know what? Trust the military justice system. There are things you can do. But this sounds like an insurrection. Aren't the Democrats the ones who are always saying, oh, Republicans are calling for an insurrection? Unfortunately, this was bait. Because now the President Trump said you should prosecute them. Hakeem Jeffries goes, he wants to prosecute members of Congress. Oh, my God, the humanity. That's what this nonsense is all about. It was designed as clickbait. It was designed to get earned media, free media, which is all of us covering it. They put out one social media post, and now this is all anybody can talk about, is this. And they're going to run this for the rest of time. This is how they try to create a national profile. By the way, what are the illegal orders? You know, Alyssa Slotkin went on TMZ yesterday. I'm not one who watches TMZ, but even TMZ was asking her what orders. She couldn't name the illegal orders. This was designed to cause controversy. This was designed to bait Donald Trump. And this was designed to try and get their lefty military members, who are the ones who are the bureaucrats who are hiding out in the Pentagon or wherever else they've been all these years. This is what they're trying to do, to throw a little chum in the water to them. That's what this is. Absolutely crazy and despicable. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, Fergie's got a plan to mess with trucks, as if we don't have enough problems with trucks around here. We'll tell you his latest insane idea of that and your calls. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Jasmine Crockett calls out Republicans for the wrong Jeffrey Epstein. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Paul in Bonnie Lake. Paul, what's up? Hello, Paul.
My call.
Yes, what's up?
Hey, number one, you don't get it. The Democrat Party has always hated the military. Remember back in the 60s and the 70s when they were spitting on us and kicking us, and actually siding with the North Vietnamese and gutting our military? George McGovern, let's gut the bloated military budget by 80%. Woodrow Wilson, they have always done this.
Hang on a second, Paul. Hang on a second. Here's where we disagree a little bit. Every single person in that ad was a member of the military. I don't disagree with what. Hang on, Paul. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Here's what I disagree with. I'm not saying what you're saying didn't happen. Of course, we all know it did. But what I'm saying is people like this want to use the military for their own purposes. It's not that they hate the military. They want to weaponize the military against their enemies. That's where I disagree with you.
Okay. How old are you?
How old am I? I'm 45 this year.
Okay. I was born in 54. I grew up with the U.S. military personnel being beaten. Hanoi Jane Fonda, the SDS, the Weathermen.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, Paul. I'm not disagreeing with that. Okay. What I'm saying is that these specific Democrats, you want to say that about Hillary Clinton? 100%. These specific Democrats, I noticed some of them were CIA analysts. These are the ones who want to use the military for their own purposes. I agree with you. There are tons of Democrats who despise the military. Look how they despise police. Look how they despise the FBI. Look how they despise ICE. Look how they despise any federal agents whatsoever. I completely agree with you. What I'm saying with regard to these 6 Democrats, it's like the ones who don't despise the military. They want to use it for their own purposes. They despise the purposes they're being used for right now. That's where I think we disagree. I'm not disagreeing with anything you experienced, Paul.
Okay, very, very good point. But also, I'm going to bring in Jimmy Carter, vile, anti-Jewish, anti-military bigot.
Yes, all the above. Yes.
Yes. Thank you for taking me call. But I am retired military, and I am one of the accepted/essential personnel who worked for 40 days without pay.
Oh, well, we appreciate that. I hope you get the bonus out of it. I was talking to some of my friends, finding out if they got the bonuses or not. They say it remains to be seen. But thank you for your service, Paul. Thank you for the call. Thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for the fun conversation. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Ben at SeaTac. Ben, how you doing, man?
Well, Ari, I hope you're going to Roanoke Conference. I hope I can meet you there.
The Roanoke Conference. I will tell you. Okay, can I tell you something? Because you brought it up. I brought it up. There's supposed to be a very exciting panel featuring me. So I will be there, and a few other people that you're probably a fan of will be on that panel with me talking about political violence. At least that's the tentative schedule for now.
Okay, well, cool. Well, about this inflation and especially with the food supply, beef in particular, but it's not getting any coverage as it should, is that under the Biden administration here in Washington State with the Democrats, they've been attacking ranchers. They've been trying to deny them grazing land, especially like it's right now here in Washington State, it's the King Ranch. It's a pretty big ranch. They've been at war with the Washington State Department of Ecology, and now the federal BLM is backing the ranchers finally, so they got some help. But they've been attacking the Democrats all across America for the last 5-6 years or so with net zero agenda has been attacking ranchers here in the Western United States. This last year it was a lawsuit against the BLM, the Biden one. Because a whole bunch of ranchers in the Western U.S. they're going to all of a sudden all these grazing lands that they've been using for generations have been getting. They said, no, we got to replenish the forest by letting everything just grow.
Ben, can you do me a favor?
And
can you do me a favor?
Ben,
can you do me a favor? I want to know what I'm talking about on this. So can you do me a favor?
I
Email me some literature, okay? ARI@kvi.com. It's in my inbox. You sent it to me just now?
It's at the Hoffmaster or the Hoffmeister.
Yeah, okay. Do me a favor.
Like
send it to this one because that one has tons of spam filters. ARI@kvi.com. ARI@kvi.com, okay?
ARI
@KVI. Real easy. My name, the station, okay? Send that on over to me so I can check it out, all right?
Sure.
All right.
Because there's even a video from a rancher guy who's makes a lot of videos about this. This is something that's been not getting the coverage it needs, and we need to call the Democrats out on this. On top of the horrible inflation rates in their states, but this is part of the food supply problems that we're experiencing right now. Is because the Democrats they're going to go after the poultry farmers too, or poultry producers with water runoff. That was the next thing in the bullseye.
Ben, do me a favor. I want to know exactly what you're talking about. Shoot this over to me at my studio address, okay?
I sure will.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of Ben from SeaTac, looks like there's some other fun going on in SeaTac. Governor Bob Ferguson has declared an emergency proclamation as a result of the shutdown of the Olympic pipeline following a fuel leak near Everett. So you got a problem. This pipeline, which is providing the fuel for people at SeaTac, now you've got a leak in the sucker. You got to clean the thing up. You got to fix the thing. And now you're heading into Thanksgiving. So Bob Ferguson decided that he is going to waive the sleep requirements. So basically the time requirements. You're only allowed to drive X amount of hours as a trucker. I can't see this causing any problems whatsoever. Let's read the proclamation itself. Governor Bob Ferguson today declared an emergency as a result of the shutdown of the Olympic pipeline following a fuel leak near Everett. The shutdown has disrupted jet fuel transportation to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which relies directly on the pipeline for jet fuel deliveries. On November 11th, routine maintenance uncovered a leak on the Olympic pipeline in Snohomish County between Everett and the city of Snohomish. The Olympic pipeline notified the state of the leak and is working with the state and federal partners on containment, cleanup, and repair. The Olympic pipeline has not yet provided an estimated timeline for restoring the system. The governor's emergency proclamation temporarily waives and suspends state regulations limiting the number of hours commercial motor vehicle operators can drive when transporting jet fuel, while ensuring that safe driving measures are in place. Stop. How are you ensuring safe driving measures are in place while waiving the requirements of how many hours they can drive? Those two don't balance out. We don't have enough problems with truckers already with the illegal truckers. Now we got to cause more problems with all the truckers. I know we have a lot of truckers that listen to the show. Guys and gals, I need your feedback on this because I have a different idea. What about Bob Ferguson contacting the National Guard and getting everybody who drives trucks for them, because I see those convoys going back and forth on I-90 all the time, and getting them to transport the fuel? How about a better one? Don't we have a giant military base here? I am sure there is a way they get their fuel. What can we do to get it to SeaTac? Because you've got helicopters and you've got airplanes and you've got all this stuff. How do we get that to SeaTac? This seems like you are now putting people at risk. You are now having people who shouldn't be driving because they're past the point of exhaustion driving. Now, truckers, you want to set me straight? You give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Truckers, if you are driving, don't text me. Keep your eyes on the road. Don't text me. But do you think my idea has merit? Do you think the governor is right? I'm happy to be proven wrong, but this sounds like a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad idea. And it sounds like you're only setting yourself up for other problems. So the guy who's tired is now transporting jet fuel? That sounds like a horrible idea. I don't think that's really the way we should be going with this. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from David in Port Orchard. David, what's going on?
All right, so I'm a Class A driver. I can drive hazmat. I can drive pretty much anything except triples.
Okay.
The Department of Transportation is federal. They set the rules and the guidelines for how long you can work and how many hours you can drive. So how is it that Ferguson, who is just a governor, he can't change federal law? How can that be?
So I had a similar question.
Above the laws?
I thought these were federal requirements, and thank you for clearing that up because I didn't know how he could change that either. But then again, he's disobeying federal law with letting illegals have CDLs in the first place, by letting illegals be here in the state. I'll tell you what. David, after the show today or during one of the commercial breaks, I'm going to reach out to Bob Ferguson's office and the Department of Transportation and the Department of Transportation, not just in Washington, but the one in D.C., and ask if this is even legal. David, what do you think about my idea? Do you think it's safer and sounds more productive and perhaps a better way to go, or you think there's maybe another idea you have?
Well, I think, using the National Guard to do driving, I mean, those guys are trained. They can do it. I mean, gives them something to do.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I mean, let's keep things rolling, but let's not make up our rules as we go along. But that seems to be the political climate here in Seattle and in Washington is, we're just going to do whatever we want. We don't care what law it is.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the case here. But also Bob Ferguson doesn't want a problem heading into Thanksgiving. So he's desperate, and they're not very inventive. Plus, if you need to use JBLM, who do you have to call for that?
You got to call the military.
Right, and who's running the military right now?
You need to call the Secretary of War for that.
That's right. Oh my God, how great would that be? Donald Trump comes out here riding on a truck. Bob, I'm telling you, we're going to bring your fuel to SeaTac. We got you. I'm riding shotgun with Pete Hegseth. We're coming along right now.
That's right. We've graduated from the fryer at McDonald's to a truck driver.
Well, hang on. He's got experience with the truck. He had the garbage truck, right? I think he's just upgrading his CDL as he goes, right?
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Dave, appreciate the perspective. Appreciate the information. Thank you for the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ken in Tacoma. Ken, set me straight. Am I right or wrong on this?
Hi, Ari. Hi. Yeah, I think you're wrong about using the National Guard. I'm also a Class A CDL driver.
Yeah.
I've also served in the U.S. military, Army, and National Guard. And in my experience with the National Guard, that's a risk that you don't want to. I mean, they're fine; they do their jobs, but to start transporting fuel, the military is they don't have the same regulations as commercial truck drivers as far as their vehicles are concerned to transport goods on the highways and the freeways. So.
Well, then let me ask you this. Help me understand this, Ken. Go with me on this for a second, okay? Help me understand this. So somebody has to transport fuel for the military. Who's bringing the fuel to the military?
Who's bringing the fuel to the military? It's pipeline. It's piped in.
It goes to JBLM also?
Then it goes to JBLM to a holding tank, and then they take it from there in a truck and take it to the aircraft.
I got you. So you're saying there's nobody in the military with a Class A license who could be transporting this stuff?
I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying that, you're using military vehicles that are not held to the same standard.
Oh, I see. That's a fair point. That's a very, very fair point, Ken. Do appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. To me, it just doesn't seem smart to let these guys go over on their hours to get the fuel here. There's got to be another solution. I love all the truckers calling in. So if you've got a solution, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, according to Fox News, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro responded to backlash over the arrest of an Uzbekistani illegal immigrant with suspected terror ties who was captured by federal authorities while holding a Pennsylvania commercial driver's license. We spoke about this guy the other day. Akror Bazorov was nabbed by ICE while driving a big rig in Kansas and holding a Pennsylvania CDL with a Somerton, Philadelphia address. He was wanted in Tashkent, Uzbekistan on suspicion of ties to terrorist groups. We spoke about this guy the other day. So Shapiro, who doesn't want to say, oh, well, we issued him a CDL even though he was a terrorist. What does Shapiro say? Well, he was on federal databases, so he's your problem. Okay, who was running the federal databases when this guy got his CDL? The Biden administration. So you want to try doing that? Let's not forget, this guy is on the short list. This guy is on the short list to run for president next time for the Democrats. Holy cow. We're being run by morons around here. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take call from Heather in Tacoma. Heather, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. I just wanted to, I didn't hear the entire thing. I don't know how Ferguson is trying to change whatever he's changing, but I drive a fuel tanker for a nationwide company, and we deliver to JBLM and SeaTac and Fred Meyers and Safeways, and so I don't understand why he's trying to bring the National Guard out.
No. Let me back up. You missed the part, Heather.
Okay.
And you can set me straight here, okay? I think a whole bunch of truckers are calling the show right now because they missed parts of this. Let's clear it up, okay? There's a leak in the pipeline that brings the fuel to SeaTac, okay? So what they're saying is Ferguson is waiving requirements on how many hours of rest you guys need so that he can have more trucks bringing the fuel to SeaTac. And what I said was, wait a second, why are you waiving the requirements on hours? We had one gentleman call in who said, Ari, if he does that, it's a federal thing, not a state thing. He doesn't have the authority to do that. I suggested, hey, are there people for the National Guard who could be additional truck drivers? Or are there people from the military who could be additional truck drivers? That was all I was saying. I was not saying, hey, let's get rid of the people with fuel CDLs, with the Class A CDLs.
Okay, well, right. Well, the problem with that is I used to drive school bus, and school bus, they would change, like there are the CDL federal regulations, but they would also implement stricter regulations because you're working with children and passengers that are children.
Yeah.
And so when you change the federal laws, you can make them stricter, but you can't loosen them. He's trying to say that he wants drivers to drive more hours. That's ridiculous. You can't do that. You can't stretch. We work enough hours, and you're right. Driving, you get tired. You're not just sitting and shifting gears. The stress of dealing with the traffic and the people cutting you off. I thought when I started driving fuel, people would give me a wider berth. No, they don't care. And half the time they think you're just hauling milk or water, so they don't even know they're being dangerous.
Right. I'll tell you this, Heather, okay, just from my own experience, and I have never driven a big rig. The biggest truck I have driven is something I rented from Hertz, okay? So this is just for my comparison. When we had that whole Alaska Airlines disaster, and I still had to get to that flight for my niece's bat mitzvah, didn't want to miss it, I was driving exhausted. I was driving overtired. My wife said she has never seen me driving so unsafe. I think this is a terrible idea what Bob Ferguson is doing. What would you do instead, Heather?
I think that it would be good to look into the National Guard.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. So my idea has merit in some way. Somehow we'll try and figure something out. Okay.
I don't want to take work away from my people,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Temporary stopgap.
In special circumstances, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there, Heather, okay? Some of our listeners, in fact, a lot of our listeners are truck drivers, as we're finding out today, looking at my phone lighting up like a Christmas tree. Heather, appreciate the call. You stay safe out there. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Jasmine Crockett gets the wrong Epstein. Plus, a lot more of your calls, a lot more of your texts about this trucking fiasco. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. And if you want to make sure we reach you on the road, make sure you download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Andrew in Renton. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I am just retired out of National Guard, and that was my job, transporting jet fuel. And we transported all over the actual Washington State during the fires, you name it. Bremerton, Eastern Washington. We were more than capable, and I mean, we would transport convoys of 7 trucks, 6,000 gallons.
That's what I thought. So do you think my idea has merit?
Absolutely. It would take nothing but a phone call.
Do you think it sounds safer than what Bob Ferguson is proposing?
Absolutely. I don't think he's thinking.
Well, I mean, it's Bob Ferguson. The truth is that he's not Jay Inslee. Jay Inslee, you could chalk it up to dumb. You know what I think it is with Bob Ferguson? Bob Ferguson doesn't want to call the National Guard because then he's relying on the military. Or, oh my God, wait, I just realized something, Andrew. Bob Ferguson said he signed that thing from the Democrats this year that National Guard from other states can't come here. So if he wanted to bring in more help from, let's say, Oregon or California or Idaho for their National Guard to help with this fuel thing, I'm not sure he can do it now.
There you go. I think you're onto something.
Oh, Andrew, thank you for the call. I feel so validated.
Right, thank you.
I feel so
it.
seen. Thank you. Appreciate your service. Thanks for being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Robert in Port Orchard. Robert, what's up?
Hey, Ori. So one of my things, the first thing I thought of is, what about the money? And that's all this is. Bob Ferguson he's willing to sacrifice safety for money because
calling up the National Guard costs money.
Well, no. If you need twice as many truckers on the road, it's a price. And that's what he's trying to avoid, which the Democrats always say, no, we never hurt anybody. We never have anything. But it's just that the contractor that he's probably talking to is saying, yeah, I can do this, but if I do 24-hour operation, it's going to cost you X, and it's a bunch because that's 4 men, 24 hours a day, 15 men, 20, whatever the price is. It's a price point that he was willing to sacrifice safety. And I think that's being missed on the whole conversation. He is saying now all of a sudden he's conservative with our money. He spends it crazy.
Holy cow.
Else.
I didn't even think of that. Robert, that is a great point. I'm going to add that to some of my questions. Do you think Bob Ferguson's going to get back to us tonight? I think that's a giant no, but these are some important questions. Robert, great point. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Corey in Bellevue. Corey, what's up?
Hey, all right. So I was infantry NCO, but I was also a driving instructor and a licensing NCO for my unit.
Mm-hmm.
And we included 88 mics. Those are the truck drivers who haul things, including, fuel from diesel to jet fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And those drivers must meet both federal regulations and the Army regulations. They also have to study what Washington state regulations are so they can drive between Joint Base Lewis McChord and Yakima Training Center or other facilities the National Guard has across the state.
Sure, I see them going there all the time. I always see them on the highways. Yeah.
Yep, and they can haul that fuel just like that other guy said, so that is something that they are qualified to do, and it's a good plan. Also, I'm going to see you tonight in Kent. We're going to try to help and keep the vote secure.
That would be awesome. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, I'm going to be out in Kent tonight. I will be in Kent tonight with Scott Pressler. You have an event at the Elysian Event Center that used to be in LA Fitness, I believe. It's the one at 520 Washington Avenue South in Kent. I will be late. I will be there late. I'll probably be there around 7 o'clock because I'm going to be on air the whole time today through 6 o'clock. So I'll be there as soon as I'm done. I'm going to hop in my Dodge Charger. I'm going to zip on over to you guys, and I'll see you there tonight, Corey, all right?
All right, see you then.
All right, good deal. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. All right, I promised you the Jasmine Crockett audio, and this is amazing. Let me tell you what happened. Jasmine Crockett tried to call out Lee Zeldin for taking campaign money from Jeffrey Epstein. There's one little teeny tiny problem. Epstein, very common last name. Jeffrey, very common first name. So guess what? She accuses Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. He's a Jewish doctor somewhere in New York. Took money from, not the other guy who did all the sex trafficking and whatever else. So Jasmine Crockett made this claim, gets called out by CNN, and her excuse is insane. Give a listen to this craziness. You get to hear all of them back to back to back to back.
You talked about Republicans taking money from a Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what you said.
Who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein. Just so that people understand, when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled. And that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies.
Hang on, make sure I got this. So you just assumed it was the same Jeffrey Epstein because you Googled it. You didn't verify it whatsoever. You told a lie, and then when you got called out on it, you said, well, it got sprung on us. Mike, do you know how many times I have to Google and Google and Google and verify and verify and verify to make sure it's the same person we're talking about? Because otherwise, something like this could happen. So your excuse is you're a dummy? That's your excuse? Your excuse is your staff are dummies and you just took what they said at face value? You smeared people for no reason. It's some Dr. Jeffrey Epstein in New York. Had nothing to do with the other Jeffrey Epstein. So your excuse is you're a moron. Just making sure I got that right. This is the woman that the Democrats think is their great savior. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. Not everybody in the progressive world is thrilled about Katie Wilson getting elected. And one of them is going to join us next to tell us what he thinks about Katie Wilson. Stay tuned for this fascinating interview when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, I love to have voices on the show that I disagree with, and sometimes we find points of agreement. My wife has been sending me these videos that you've been seeing on social media by a guy named Chapin Easy, who has a Substack, which you can follow, called The Noise Ordinance. He's recently to our area, and what's fascinating is he's calling out a lot of the same stuff I am, but not for the same reason, specifically when it comes to the Seattle mayor's race. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Chapin Easy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ari, for having me. And just a correction, I've actually lived in Seattle for 8 years now. It'll be 9 next year.
Oh, it's okay. See, I still beat you. I've lived here for 22, but I'm not from here originally either. But what's fascinating to me is you're coming at this stuff from the progressive side of the aisle, and you're looking at somebody like Katie Wilson, and you're saying she's not actually a progressive. Let me just tell you, because I assume you don't listen to my show. Where I come at this from is I say that somebody like Katie Wilson is a beard. People want to use her for her own purposes and try and make her look like a progressive, but she doesn't even know what she's doing half the time. What's your opinion on all this?
I would say that Katie Wilson is a progressive, but it's progressive in name only. More so with Katie Wilson, what is something that I've been thinking about and writing about is the media's framing of her as a progressive champion. Where if you look back to the primary, where she completely shocked all of Seattle and the rest of the U.S. and beat Bruce Harrell by 10 points in the primary. People thought, oh, she must be this big progressive champion of the world in Seattle, but she was running behind Deion Foster, Erica Evans, and Alexis Mercedes Rink, who are progressives who, as we now know, eventually won their seats and are going to be in city council and also city attorney in the case of Erica Evans. So that was a red flag for me of thinking about, okay, why is Katie Wilson, who is supposed to be the leader of this progressive movement in Seattle, running behind, let's say, I think it was like 40,000 votes behind Alexis Mercedes Rink in the primary. She got 15,000 less votes than the reauthorization for the democracy vouchers. So she is a progressive in name, but progressive champion to be determined.
Okay, so what's your issue? Why do you think she's not a real progressive? Because the rest of the country is looking at her and saying she's the next Zoran Mamdani. I don't believe that, but I'm kind of curious why you think she's not progressive enough.
I think it's an insult to Zoran Mamdani, who is a POC, raising queens, who is a generational political talent in the same vein as Barack Obama, to compare him to Katie Wilson, who is just someone who was running a nonprofit, the Transgender Writers Union, and has a very scant resume of things that she has done. So when I think of Zoran Mamdani, his progressive policy is backed by people of color. It is thinking, okay, how do we take people who have been historically shut out of power and give them power? Apply that to Katie Wilson, it's literally just another white person in power wanting to keep power within white people. So that's where my distinction of just like, okay, is she actually progressive, or is it just policies that sound good to leftists?
So that was fascinating when I saw her announcement yesterday of her transition team. I saw all these people that it looks like the left is trying to say, oh, look, she's doing outreach to business and she's trying to be bipartisan. I see them as a bunch of not far left, but lefty activists who work with the business community sometimes. But I look at that and I say, where's all the people of color she's trying to champion? She claimed she was championing all that. It looks like more people we already know. And if you're claiming that you want to be like Zoran Mamdani, who's being the champion of all this stuff, it doesn't look like you're doing a very good job. In fact, in one of your videos, you called her out as saying she was manufactured by the stranger. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. So the stranger and the urbanist have a history of manufacturing progressive champions. They did this with Carrie Moon specifically, and we can think back to a recent example where it is someone that is an outsider that is supposed to use some sort of their special abilities, either like a policy wonk or something, to come in and save Seattle. But the problem is not everyone reads The Stranger or The Urbanist. They have a very niche following. It's usually just white people that live in Capitol Hill and other areas as well. So when you think of Katie Wilson outside of that bubble, she does not exist. to most of the people in Seattle. The numbers in the election prove it. This was a very low voter election. But if you think about specifically, I've heard people say, "Oh, she is a lot of people of color voted for her." Where and they would point to her winning the South End as proof of that. But in 2022, a writer for the South Seattle Emerald did a whole data analysis where they showed that even though a lot of POC live in the South End, the most people that vote there are white people. So it's just white people supporting white people for Katie Wilson. And I'm not seeing a lot of support from people of color for her. So that makes me question exactly what she's doing. Specifically, I don't know if I saw a black person on her transition team. I am skeptical still. I will give her the benefit of the doubt just because this is the city that I live in and it's a city that I love and I want it to do well. But I would have preferred someone that actually had experience running government, actually getting things done within governance, running the city of Seattle.
I find this conversation fascinating. I'm so glad you responded to my email so we can have it. We're talking with Chapin Easy, who has the Noise Ordinance Substack and is all over social media. And he's somebody you should check out, even if you don't agree with him, because he expresses things on the other side. And if you want to refine your arguments, it's best to learn the arguments on the other side. I've been checking his stuff out all the time. So you say that you voted for Bruce Harrell. Bruce Harrell,
Yes.
I would say I can't stand for a lot of reasons. I don't like him. None of them are racial, but I don't like him for a lot of reasons. He has failed my district in the South End time after time after time. What was the reason you backed him when a lot of progressives say he's not progressive enough?
I think that the ones that are saying he is not progressive enough have this idea of progressivism that is dressed up in policy, where it's just like LGBTQ rights, environmental rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Progressivism is the transference of power from those who did not have power, historically did not have power, into their hands. And that is what Bruce Harrell has been doing over the course of his entire career, of putting people into positions that have historically not had power in order to bring about a change in the name of it, progressive, of a change of hands of power. I didn't put that in the best way, but I voted for Bruce Harrell because I believe in him and I believe in his years of experience working in city council, his years of experience as a lawyer, all of that telling me that he has governance experience of actually taking something from an idea into policy. And then also, he is a coalition builder. If you think about it, Bruce Harrell has built the biggest modern day coalition in Seattle politics of just like disparate groups coming together, all supporting Bruce Harrell. And then you look at the coalition that Katie Wilson built, and it's mostly people that live on Capitol Hill. So all of those things combined tell me that Bruce Harrell was the better candidate for Seattle in a mayoral position where it is administration. It is not just vibes. It is not just advocacy. You can't just go and, for example, I don't know, go and tell one of the largest employers in the city of like, hey, we're going to boycott you. Where it's just like, that is advocacy work. You are an executive. That's not what executives do. So all those reasons are why I voted for Bruce.
This is a fascinating, fascinating conversation. The last few minutes we have with Chapin Easy, whose Substack you can find over at Noise Ordinance, which you should check out, and you should check him out on social media. Some fascinating stuff. So you've been getting a lot of flack from the left because apparently
Yes.
you don't see you as left enough. And my audience who's been listening right now is probably yelling at me going, Ari, why are you even having this guy on the show? He's so progressive. But what is that like to get that kind of stuff from these white progressives who are saying you're not progressive enough?
It makes me feel that they have not lived in areas outside of Seattle. I'm from Maryland, Baltimore area specifically, and I've also been in other parts of the country where Bruce Harrell in any other part of the United States would be considered too left. But in Seattle, since the Overton window for politics is so far away from everyone else, he is considered a centrist. He's considered a conservative. Going back to the flack that I've been getting from online leftist progressives, they are saying that I am a conservative. And as we know, and your listeners will probably tell you,
Yeah.
I am not a conservative.
Yeah.
I am a progressive. I am center left. So they have a warped reality of politics in this country. And luckily, it is just contained within online spaces. But it's a very Seattle problem of people locked in echo chambers, closed loop logic, and not being able to, like you said earlier, understand the perspectives of other people, even to the point where we are all on the same team. But for some reason, when I say these things, I'm just like, hey, by the way, did the stranger do any critical analysis of Katie Wilson? Oh, hey, by the way, she does not have any experience working specifically within government. I know she worked for, executive director or for the Transit Rider Union, but that is not experience within government. I get called out and I get labeled, oh, you're conservative. So that is very interesting.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Last question before we let you go. Predictions. Do you think that Katie Wilson's going to be a one-term mayor like the past few that we've had? Or do you think that the same people you're talking about who are propping her up are going to prop her up for another term?
I think that once a person is elected, they become the establishment. And what does the online left progressive hate? The establishment. In terms of will she get another term? Seattle has shown that they like one-term mayors. I remember reading something specifically that even people in City Hall keep their heads down because they know that another mayor's administration is going to come in. So only time will tell of what will happen. But like I said earlier, I wish her the best because I live in the city and I have to live with the consequences of whoever is the administrator of the city.
You know, I'm going to give you a huge compliment right now. We have a lot of people from across the country on the show as guests. This has been one of the most fascinating interviews I've ever done. And I find it fascinating, the parts where I agree with you, but for very different reasons. So this has really been very fascinating. And if you want to read more, check out Chapin Easy's Substack, Noise Ordinance. Subscribe to it right now and follow him on social media. And even if you disagree with everything he says, you have to learn what the other side is saying if you want to come up with the arguments to have with the other side. Chapin Easy, thank you so much for joining us today. Really value your time today.
Thank you, Ari. I appreciate it.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, check out KVI.com. Got 2 brand new exclusive articles up right now. One is an interview we did with Representative Michael Baumgardner yesterday. The other one is about a big decision that Girmay Zahilay, the new King County executive, has to make about police oversight and how that may factor in going forward with a character you may know from the past. There's a lot of questions surrounding whether or not Bob Ferguson has the authority to waive these hours regarding the truck drivers to bring fuel to SeaTac. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is Governor Bob Ferguson. Governor Ferguson, is what you're doing actually legal?
I will make it legal.
Okay, Governor, that's a little intense. I don't think you actually have the authority to do this.
Pay the price for your lack of vision.
Oh, whoa. Chill out, man. I'm just trying to be friends here. I'm just asking a question.
You will be destroyed.
Whoa. Okay, no more Governor Ferguson for right now. When we come back, my friends, more of your calls, more of your texts during our final hour of free-for-all, and we will tell you Girmay Zahilay's big decision that he has to make regarding the oversight of police in King County. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a controversial official in King County government may be about to be shown the door. We'll give you all the details. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Mario in Kent. Mario, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, Ari? Hey, listen, I just wanted to tell you, my friend, you were with that person that talked about progressive, and let me tell you something coming from a guy who was born in communism, right? Progressive is the new term for communist, okay? If you take a look at this guy, he references Barack Obama. What was Barack Obama about, right? Community organizer and wealth redistribution, right? Zoran Mandani, the same thing. Who are these guys' idols? Who do they put in? They're no different than Karl Marx. If you've studied Karl Marx was one lazy guy who basically sacrificed his family, starved his kids, basically. Some of them died of disease because he was too prideful to get a job because he didn't want to work. And the guy that financed him, Ingalls, was another guy who inherited his money from the companies that his dad had, and he hated capitalism and work. But hey, he benefited greatly, so he was bankrolling Marx, and Marx's entire family, the ones that survived, his daughters, some of them suicided themselves. But progressives took the name progressives because, communism is still not very popular in the United States, so they have to show themselves as something different. But that's how they have infiltrated the system, the political system. And that's why I'm not surprised, Katie Wilson calls herself a progressive, even though this other gentleman says, no, she's not a real progressive. And I will tell you this much, all the progressives that I have listened to, they espouse the same policies as communists do.
Well,
the people are going to take over.
I'll tell you this, Mario, is that there are too few people who have any idea what communism actually is, how socialism leads to communism. And I think the problem is every now and again, a refresher, I don't want to say is needed. That's the wrong way to phrase this. But people almost need a refresher, which they don't need to die, and they don't need to die of starvation. I want to be very careful how I choose my words here. I don't want to say they need a refresher, but they need somebody like you to remind them of what happened. And that's why I'm glad you call the show all the time, because you know from experience how this stuff always turns out. In fact, we got a text over here. Somebody says, this one here from Dave on the text line, so instead of a rhino, which is a Republican in name only, Katie Wilson is a Pino, a progressive in name only, which I thought that was pretty funny. That's pretty good. But yeah, Mario, I think enough people think that these progressive policies will actually work, and their teachers haven't educated them as to history. They don't know that these things fail every single time they are tried. Mario, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate you giving us these cautionary tales, as always, my friend. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one here from the 425, they really enjoyed my Ferguson conversation with the Emperor from Star Wars. No, that was Bob Ferguson on the phone. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. John Auburn says, Ari, the back page of The Stranger should be all anyone needs to know about the people associated with that rag. Yes, exactly. This one here from the 253, as a former pipeliner from Texas, leaks happen all the time. Alaska Pipeline, all the time. A leak fix shouldn't take more than a couple days to fix if they work around the clock. John in Auburn chimed in again. He says, Ari, Mario is the best. Always speaking the truth. Always great to hear from him. God bless Mario. Completely agree, by the way. Oh, I love that people are giving me directions tonight, by the way, Mike. People are giving me directions to get to the thing tonight because they're on the road right now listening to the show and saying, avoid this way, go that way. Yes, just to remind everybody, I'm going to be out in Kent tonight at the last event with Scott Pressler. That's going to be tonight from 5 p.m. Oh, it's starting right now, but it goes until 8 p.m. tonight, so I'm going to be there late. It's at the Elysian Event and Conference Center at 520 Washington Avenue South. It's the old LA Fitness location, for those of you who know. So it's hosted by Neat Grewal. She ran for city council out there in Kent, and Scott Pressler's going to be there, and I'm going to be making a late appearance, and they haven't advertised that yet. So my audience gets to know about that first. Reminder, you want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now a story you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
With a new King County executive preparing to reshape the government's top ranks for the first time in 16 years, the future of Tamer Abu Zaid, director of the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, hangs in the balance as criticisms intensify, formal complaints mount, and calls for his removal echo from both law enforcement and community organizations. Now, OLEO was established as an independent quasi-judicial watchdog over the King County Sheriff's Office. Because its authority depends entirely on public trust, neutrality, and credibility from both deputies and the community, its director is expected to exercise exceptional professionalism, restraint, especially in public commentary. The Code of Ethics, which OLEO adopted, demands independence, integrity, and respect for protected groups, and warns against conduct that even creates the appearance of bias. Critics have been saying for a very, 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 very long time that Abu Zaid has repeatedly violated these expectations. He has a long history of anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-white, and anti-police social media posts written both during work hours and in his free time. Screenshots included in county records we got a hold of show a consistent pattern of posts attacking Israel, Zionism, including characterizing us as white supremacists and settler colonialists. One tweet written after the Hamas October 7, 2023 massacre in Israel, in which more than 1,200 people were murdered, thousands were injured, and over 250 were taken hostage. He wrote, "Israelis don't want to know that they can be avenged after the fact, but they can be safe. So ironically, this may be the closest we have gotten to peace in a while, because Israel only entertains peace if it must, just like 50 years ago." Wait, you mean referencing the surprise attack on Israel in the 70s? Or are you referencing the surprise attack on Israel in 67? Or are you referencing the surprise attack on Israel in 48? Which one are we doing here? He also described the massacre, including the sexual violence against women and the murder of children and the elderly, as resistance, writing that resistance to invasion or occupation is an inalienable right. Charming fellow. Additional posts suggested Israelis don't want to know they can be moved after the fact by their government and frame public reaction to wartime atrocities as rooted in denial and historical amnesia. Critics in the sheriff's office and among the Jewish community members cite these comments as evidence of deep hostility towards Israel and Zionism. Many interpret his comments as callous dismissal of the massacre of Israeli civilians and justification for Hamas's violence. In a 2001 letter to the editor of the Chicago Tribune called Not Terrorist, he defended Palestinian terrorism against civilians. His rhetoric extended to sweeping characterizations of Republicans and Christians. In one post, he suggested that joining the Republican Party and converting to Christianity amounted to an embrace of white supremacy. He amplified commentary claiming that extremist white Christians would become the primary drivers of hate crimes against Jews and Muslims. For conservative or Christian sheriff's deputies, which is a lot of them, by the way, these comments signal potential ideological hostility from an official responsible for evaluating complaints involving them. Let's remember why this whole thing was established. You know, they believe, every single police officer is racist, so we're going to put all these anti-police people in charge of overseeing the police. It has not worked out well. His post about law enforcement further deepened the crisis. From an account associated with OLEO, he shared statements declaring the entire criminal system was rotten, claiming that many within the organization believe the system should be dismantled, and insisted that it cannot be reformed and must be brought down by the power of the people. Sounds like he's calling for a deadly insurrection. Sounds like him and the Democrats. Everybody's calling for deadly insurrections. Deputies interpret those declarations as proof the oversight director viewed their entire profession as illegitimate. Now, you might remember Dave Upthegrove. Now he's in charge of Washington State lands. He's their lands guy, public lands. But now he used to be the council chair. And Dave Upthegrove, okay, he definitely made up that last name. There is no way that is his given name. Upthegrove is definitely a far, far, far left guy. And he previously warned Abu Zaid in writing that his social media conduct threatened OLEO's credibility and undermined essential working relationships. In a March 22, 2023 letter, Upthegrove noted that the council had received several concerns from law enforcement and community members regarding his public statements. While affirming support for free speech, he stressed that as the face of OLEO, Abu Zaid's comments could be perceived as official positions that could impact the public's trust in the oversight office. Oh, you think? He urged Abu Zaid to exercise greater care to ensure his post did not compromise OLEO's perceived fairness. Concerns also arose over tweets made during King County work hours. Screenshots labeled working hour tweets show Abu Zaid engaged in political discussions on weekday mornings, raising discussions and questions about compliance with state restrictions on political activity during working time and blurring the line between personal commentary and official conduct. The King County Police Officers Guild previously issued a forceful demand for Abu Zaid's removal. In a unanimous letter signed by all 9 board members, the Guild declared him unfit for his position, accused him of support of terrorists, and argued that his continued employment jeopardizes public trust in government. The Guild emphasized that its membership includes Jewish deputies who they believe cannot be treated fairly by a director who minimized Hamas atrocities, blamed Israel for its civilian losses, and portrayed Israeli victims as gun-toting settlers. They noted he had been admonished before for inflammatory statements from an official OLEO account and argued that removing him was essential to restoring trust. That was a couple of years ago, by the way, guys. Most of the King County Council ignored the request, even after passing a resolution the previous year to combat anti-Semitism. Councilmember Reagan Dunn, in an 8-page complaint, accused Abu Zaid of violating workplace discrimination rules, breaching ethical obligations, and publicly attacking groups central to OELO's mission, including Jewish communities, Christians, Republicans, and law enforcement personnel. Dunn urged the council to open a formal investigation, writing that Abu Zaid's rhetoric, though potentially protected, had created a significant disruption and undermined OLEO's legitimacy. In his complaint, he cited the Code of Ethics, King County's harassment and discrimination policies, and state statutes limiting political activity using public facilities during work time. He also urged the council to evaluate Abu Zaid's speech under Pickering-Connick test, asserting that because OLEO sits at the center of highly sensitive disputes over police conduct, the government's interest in preserving trust and neutrality is uniquely compelling. The council sought external legal guidance. That's how bad this got. They reached out to an independent law firm to evaluate all this. Attorney Karen Sutherland of Ogden Murphy Wallace concluded in April 25, 2024 memorandum that while much of Abu Zaid's speech may be constitutionally protected, it nonetheless creates significant problems for an oversight official. She warned that posts targeting religious and political groups risked violating anti-discrimination standards and that posting political messages during work hours raised concerns under state law. She recommended creating explicit, stricter social media and conduct rules for agency directors. So she's saying there may not be anything legally we can do, but we need to do something, so there should be something ethically or legally we can do. That's what their recommendation was. What this guy did was so bad, they said, we really recommend you rewrite the rules to address all the stuff he did. You want to know how you become a paragraph in a textbook, or you want to know why there's ridiculous rules like you can't ride your horse down the middle of the street on days that end in Y in the middle of Nebraska. You always wonder how that law came to be. This is a guy who's a trailblazer. On March 27, 2023, a letter from Upthegrove to the Police Officers Guild referenced the same concerns and confirmed that the council communicated its expectations directly to Abu Zaid. These letters stopped short of formal discipline but established a clear history. The council had placed Abu Zaid on notice months before Dunn's complaint. In May of 2024, Chief of Staff Stephanie Sirkovich wrote to Dunn summarizing the outcome of the council's review. She explained that the council had obtained the external memorandum, evaluated Abu Zaid's conduct in light of the guidance and existing policy, and considered whether his public comments were consistent with expectations for an independent oversight director. Her letter acknowledged the impact of Abu Zaid's statements on public trust and on relations with law enforcement. She wrote that the council would move forward with policy initiatives rather than immediately seeking removal, attempting to balance free speech protections with institutional integrity, which basically means she's saying, okay, we got a free speech issue here, but we got a work-related issue here. So we need to change the work ethics guidelines and the work guidelines that he shouldn't be doing this stuff on government time. Unsatisfied with relying solely on existing policies, Dunn introduced legislation establishing explicit standards of conduct for OLEO leadership. The draft code would require the director to uphold the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the office, avoid impropriety and appearance of impropriety, minimize conflicts through personal conduct, and refrain from any activity inconsistent with the oversight rule. All these things are common sense. All these things are common sense that you should be doing anyway. Now they have to put them in writing. You're so bad. The legislation would allow the council to remove the director by majority vote if these standards were violated. Dunn argued that because OLEO is one of the most politically sensitive agencies in King County, its director must be especially cautious about public statements. He said Abu Zaid's inflammatory posts on sensitive geopolitical and religious topics had undermined OLEO's credibility and strained relationships with Jewish deputies and the broader Jewish community. Dunn emphasized that this was not the first time Abu Zaid had been warned for such behavior and said the goal was not to police personal beliefs, but to ensure that powerful oversight official maintains the trust of all communities he serves. Dunn also called for Abu Zaid's resignation. Documents we got a hold of also included letters from deputies and members of the public describing their concerns. One Jewish sheriff's deputy wrote that he feared he could not receive a fair hearing under Abu Zaid. Another employee described receiving discipline and argued that the investigation was influenced by Abu Zaid's anti-Zionist views. This escalating controversy now intersects with the fact that executive-elect Girmay Zahilay is preparing to take office as the first new King County executive in 16 years. Zahilay's transition team has already notified more than 100 appointed staff members that their positions may not exist under his administration. His team emphasized that with this restructuring, it's a standard for any new administration seeking to build an operational line with his priorities. With 133 appointed positions subject to change, Zahilay is conducting a full staffing analysis, reorganizing roles, and inviting current appointees to reapply for new positions. Those not retained will remain on payroll through January 2nd. Because he is replacing an appointed, not elected executive, he will be sworn in on November 25th, immediately after certification. His administration is expected to overhaul the executive office, creating new positions, eliminating others, and reshaping the direction of the King County government. Randy Kessler, who's executive director of Stand With Us Northwest, told us in a statement the position of OLEO director requires whoever holds the job to be diplomatic, impartial, and be able to build bridges between two groups with differing perspectives. This requires the director to exercise careful discretion, enabling him to build trust and credibility. Tamer Abu Zaid has repeatedly failed to do this. He continued that his denial of mass rapes occurred on October 7, 2023. His defense of the massacre is an inalienable right, and his claim that Jews control the media are not statements of a credible, trustworthy public servant. His other social media posts demonizing Christians, Republicans, and police also show an unwillingness to follow the rules that govern this role. He says he has tremendous concern about Mr. Abu Zaid's judgment and his professional ethics, and the King County Council should allow his term to end and appoint a less problematic person to the role. Regina Sassoon-Friedland, regional director for the American Jewish Committee in Seattle, told us at a time when anti-Semitism is at record levels, King County Executive Girmay Zahilay needs to seriously consider whether it is in the county's best interest to allow Tamer Abu Zaid to remain at the helm of the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight. In addition to his history of expression against law enforcement, Abu Zaid has actively trafficked an anti-Zionist rhetoric online, including justifying the October 7, 2023 Hamas mass murders, weaponized sexual assaults, and taking 250 as captives in Gaza. For those watching the controversy, Zahilay's arrival represents more than a routine transition. It is, in the view of many officials, the most strategically opportune moment the county has had in years to reevaluate Abu Zaid's future. As one source familiar with the situation told us, the combination of ongoing ethical controversy and sweeping administrative turnover offers a clean house moment in which the county could select new leadership without the political upheaval such a decision might cause midterm. Now, here's the thing. Abu Zaid is up for renewal on December 2nd. The county council gets to make that decision. The question is, will they? And will Girmay push for him to stay or push for him to be removed? This is an opportune time because you could say, hey, we're changing everything the way it's been in 16 years. Maybe we should get rid of this guy. This is a perfect opportunity to do that without it becoming a huge political controversy. And I think that they should. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, as the Trump administration continues to dismantle the Department of Education. I see this as a good thing, and so should unions. We'll tell you why when we come back, but first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. There is no question that according to every single metric, from when the Department of Education was established the test scores of students have gone down in public schools nationally over the decades since it was created. So people should be saying this is great. We want the money to be spent in the classrooms. Now, for the leftist argument for this, you should be saying, look, all these lefty teachers unions control all these school districts. If that money is going to the districts instead, you guys have more play money, good or bad. So good districts can spend on education. Bad districts that spend it all on politics, you guys can spend it electing more lefty candidates for yourselves. You can do that. You should be excited about this. And yet some people on the left are losing their minds about the Department of Education being shut down. It's not like they're saying we don't want to educate kids anymore. It's saying, why do you need a building in Washington, D.C. telling anybody what to teach? Do I think there should be some standards? Yes, but you're nowhere close to meeting them anyway, and I don't think you need an entire department for that. I really, really don't. The amount of money we have funneled in this thing while the grades have consistently gotten worse is mind-boggling, and it's a crime. It's outright theft. Here's what the press secretary was describing they're doing instead of the Department of Education.
In other news this week, President Trump took a significant step toward delivering on a core campaign promise to finally close the Department of Education. To shrink the bloated federal bureaucracy, the Department of Education just entered into new interagency agreements with 4 agencies: the Departments of Labor, Interior, Health and Human Services, and State. These agencies will now ensure the delivery of legally required programs while also refocusing them to better serve students. This common sense action brings the Trump administration much closer to finally returning education where it belongs, at the state and local level, not in Washington, D.C. The Democrats' reckless 43-day government shutdown did manage to do one valuable thing. It proved that America does not need a federal Department of Education. During the longest shutdown in history, the Department of Education furloughed 90% of its staff, and America's education system was not impacted whatsoever. Schools stayed fully open across the country. Students attended class and received normal in-person instruction, and our wonderful teachers received their paychecks uninterrupted. The Democrats' government shutdown made it painfully obvious that American families do not need the Department of Education. Since its creation in 1979 during the Carter administration, the Department of Ed has spent over $3 trillion taxpayer dollars without improving student achievement. Despite pure pupil spending having increased by more than 245% since the 1970s, math and reading scores are down in public schools. In fact, the most recent Nation's Report Card from 2024 showed that 13-year-olds' math scores are the lowest they've been in decades, and their reading scores are the lowest since testing began more than 30 years ago. It's clear that throwing more money at a broken system does not work.
By the way, that's another great point that she made. The Department of Education is so inconsequential that it being shut down for 6 weeks did not affect a single school in the U.S. Not a single school. All the public schools are still open. All the kids are still going to school, right? Lots of other government agencies, that didn't happen. So that's the best argument you could ever possibly have for state control over the schools, for county control over the schools, for city control over the schools, for municipal control over the schools. Plus, maybe you think it might be a little different in farming communities, where those farming rural communities might have different schedules and they want to make different decisions based on the fact that they raise their kids in the fields and then they go to school and they raise them to be farmers, or they decide, hey, we have a schedule difference because the kids are working in the fields with the parents. Maybe it might be a little different than, say, oh, I don't know, the kids in Manhattan. Maybe you want all the kids to read and write, but the Department of Education hasn't helped with that at all, which begs the question, what have they been doing all this time? Just creating DEI curriculum? Because we know they're getting that from lunatics here in Seattle. I don't even know what the Department of Education is actually doing all day. They don't run the SATs. That's done by a private company. What exactly are they doing? Most of the public schools go through private accreditation. They're not getting it from the feds. They're not applying to open schools or get accreditation from the Department of Education. So what exactly do these guys do all day? That's really the question. I think it is the most useless government agency. And all this money that has been funneled into it could be better spent in the schools, in the classroom. And yes, that means if you have a lefty school board or you have a lefty school district, they'll get to spend the money on DEI or whatever stupidity they want. I noticed that the heads of the unions, like Randy Weingarten, who never shuts up about anything, has been shockingly quiet on this because I think she realizes it. I think she realizes that, wait, we'll get all this money for all these union members. This could actually be a huge, huge thing for us. The only pushback you're really getting on this is from Democrats who hit Donald Trump no matter what he does. Anything he does is evil. Anything he touches is garbage. We can't give him a win, even when this is something that might actually benefit the left. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Zoran Mamdani is going to the White House. That's right. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also tonight, there is an event out in Kent at the Elysian Event and Conference Center at 520 Washington Avenue. We've got Scott Pressler who's going to be there, and they asked me very last minute if I could swing by. So after the show today, I'll be heading there as well. And thank you to everybody on the text line who's telling me which highways to avoid so I can get there faster. Really do appreciate it. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Garrett in Sumner. Garrett, what's up, man?
Good evening. Yeah, this is Garrett. Back in the day, I spent a significant amount of time coming out of Florida State University. I did a lot of tonight's show kind of reminds me of a lot of the idea of outsourcing, right? Going back to what's going to happen in the fuel crisis right now in the state of Washington. I mean, go back to the water issue in California, and then they let the water flow, right?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting how that happened, right? But the only problem I see going with defederalizing the government is the department. If that goes away, I mean, the biggest thing is like who's going to be decentralizing everything. You don't like the area you live in, then move, right? Move to the state that you align your goals with, your civil rights, your constitutional. That's the whole goal here. Like, who's going to protect those special?
Well, so let's take civil rights violations, okay? That's not something the Department of Education does anyway. That's something the Department of Justice should be dealing with. So if you want that specific thing, that's the point they're making, and I happen to agree with you. So really, you look at this and you go, where can we go? But it reminds me of something somebody told me recently regarding Seattle. There's more and more places I don't feel comfortable going, more and more places I can't go. And when you start having those problems and you got to go to other places, you're giving up territory, you're giving up space. Plus, Garrett, if people leave Washington, I'm not going to have a job anymore. So I appreciate what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from, and a lot of times people vote with their feet. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Looks like Zoran Mamdani is going to be going to the White House. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was talking about today.
I will just add, it speaks volumes that tomorrow we have a communist coming to the White House because that's who the Democrat Party elected as the mayor of the largest city in the country. I think it's very telling, but I also think it speaks to the fact that President Trump is willing to meet with anyone and talk to anyone and to try to do what's right on behalf of the American people, whether they live in blue states or red states or blue cities, in a city that's becoming much more left than I think this president ever anticipated in his many years of living in New York himself.
So this is going to be fascinating to watch. Do you think it's going to be like with Zelensky, where he gets mad at him and Vance get mad at him and kick him out of the White House, he doesn't get his fancy dinner? Or do you think it's going to be like the way he was with the guy from Saudi Arabia? Give him the velvet glove treatment until you need to use the iron fist. I'm kind of curious how you think this is going to shake out. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, Democrats have announced their new plan for if they win in 2026, or better yet, how their campaign's going to go in 2026. It sounds like impeachment, 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 which is what it's going to be if they take back the House.
I think that the Texas court made a proper decision. I believe that the Supreme Court should follow the rules, the ruling of the Texas court. But I also know this, the Supreme Court may not. And if it does not, we still have to proceed. We cannot allow anything to get in the way of impeachment, conviction, and removal. That's what this is about. Impeachment, conviction, and removal.
For what exactly? For what? This is literally what they're doing, having press conferences outside. This is what's going to happen if the Democrats win in 2026. This is what is going to happen. We know it. We know it. Never mind the fact that we have this news from President Trump, from his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
The president uses the number 20 trillion in terms of total investments. And I think that those commitments that are real. And whether it's corporate investment, whether it's the Japanese trade deal where they're going to put in $550 billion, that whether it's the Korean trade deal with $350 billion, whether it's Apple saying that they're going to reshore, I believe that they may be up to $500 billion. So it's investments like we've never seen. And Brett, just to put that in perspective, the entire Biden administration was $1 trillion. $1 trillion over 4 years, $250 billion the final year. And we've got many single investments that are bigger than the Biden administration took in 1 year. So this is America's back. The president's done that, our great tax policy. So we're deregulating, we've got tax certainty, and we're working on energy certainty.
So things are going good on the international stage. How are things going at the local stage? Here's the border czar, Tom Hoffman.
Police out there enforcing the law. We're taking really bad guys off the street. And the whole pinata thing, I mean, that is a good example of the weakness and the cowardice of the left. I mean, they wouldn't come at an ICE officer with a bat because it'd be a bad day for the person holding that bat. So it's just over and over again. They want to attack ICE. They want to throw all these false narratives. Bottom line is ICE is protecting their communities. And all these people, where were they when President Obama was president and ICE removed 409,000 people was the record at the time? Where were they? Where were they when 500,000 children were smuggling this country and they lost track of 300,000 of them? You know what President Trump has done? I was with HHS today, Jesse. We already found over 30,000 of these kids. Like 3 weeks ago, we're at 24,000. Now we're over 30,000. Wow. And we're going to keep working until we find every one of these kids. President Trump saving lives every day. Most secure border in the history of the nation. Less fentanyl killing Americans. Less sex trafficking women and children. And we're finding children that Biden administration wasn't even looking for. And we're the bad guys. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. So all they have is impeach, impeach, impeach. Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Now that the documents are going to be released, is there even anything to talk about? This is all Democrats have. They don't have any ideas of their own, except what they'll probably do is run on the Zoran Mamdani platform going forward, and those aren't their ideas. Those are socialist ideas. There is no more Democrat Party. This is all they got. Only good news to wrap up the show. Good news headlines heading into your evening commute. Put a smile on your face. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I say all the time, it'd be nice to just do stories in Seattle about sports, about the weather, and baby animals at the zoo. Baby animals at the zoo. Here we go. Mike found this one. The Seattle Aquarium, according to Como News, has joyfully announced the arrival of Ruby, the first southern sea otter to join its ranks. They are adorable creatures, and they smell terrible. Adorable, adorable things. Hailing from Monterey Bay Aquarium, Ruby's transition to her new home marks a significant milestone in the aquarium's ongoing efforts to support sea otter conservation. We are so excited for everybody to meet Ruby, says Veronica Seawall. Wait, her last name's Seawall? Wait, hang on. She works at an aquarium, and her last name's Seawall? Curator of birds and mammals, we've been working very closely with the team at the Monterey Bay Aquarium for several months to ensure her move to Seattle is a smooth transition. We feel that living with Mishka and Siku will be a perfect fit for her. Mike, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Perhaps you may not know this. It's where they filmed Star Trek 4. That's where the whales were. I went there one time, very disappointed to find out there is no whale tank there.
Yeah, that's just a matte painting, friend.
Yeah, it really, really is. But the things we didn't know at the time. I go down there to look for Spock swimming with the whales. Nothing. Very cool aquarium, but not down there. Yeah. No.
Well, speaking of a cool aquarium, I've not actually been to the Seattle Aquarium. I might go see the adorable sea otter creature. A point of reference, though, are you thinking of sea lions, the ones that are stinky? Like they
all smell terrible.
Really?
Yeah, no, they all do.
Because sea lions are especially nasty. You go to them sea lion caves and stuff, and you might I went once and I actually got sick. It was that stinky and gross. But I'm but they're a little with their little clams, breaking clams on their chest and stuff, swimming on their back.
Awful. They're adorable.
That's amazing. I just never been close enough to one to really taste the rainbow.
Well, they're
or
always
to sample
licking
the
themselves
bouquet.
and stuff. It's bad news, man.
Sure. Anyway, my point being is I haven't been to the aquarium since they've remodeled it, and when my mom was in town, she went and said it was great. So I might have to check it out at some point.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife, she loves the zoos, she loves the aquarium, she loves all this stuff. So maybe I'll take my wife and my daughter down to the aquarium on Sunday. That would be a lot of fun. I hear it's a fortune, but I'll go check it out. Ruby's journey began when she was rescued as a one-day-old pup, weighing just 1.9 pounds, making her one of the smallest sea otters her rescuers had encountered. Despite efforts to reintroduce her to the wild, Ruby was deemed non-releasable due to her reliance on humans for sustenance. Fully domesticated. Now she will join northern sea otters Mishka and Siku at the Seattle Aquarium. That's very nice. Can you take her home as a pet? That's right. The Seattle Aquarium, established in 1977, is dedicated to marine conservation, plays a pivotal role in sea otter research and recovery efforts. Visitors can meet Ruby, Mishka, and Siku and other marine life daily from 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Meanwhile here, Taco Bell has new menu items. According to King 5, Taco Bell is turning its menu to the people who know it's best, its customers, starting today. 3 fan-created items will be available nationwide for a limited time through the chain's app and in-restaurant kiosks. The California Crunch Wrap, Burrito Bliss, and Cantina Crazed emerged from more than 40,000 submissions to the company's fan-style program, which launched in July. The initiative marks the first time the fast food chain has given customers direct input on its national menu items. Quote, fan-style shows what's possible when we loosen our grip and tap into the creativity of our fan base. What if somebody's trying to sabotage your restaurant and comes over with a Bodie McBoat face and then nobody likes the thing? It's a risk. Taylor Montgomery, Global Chief Brand Officer at Taco Bell, said in a statement that it might feel like a risk, but it's proof that our fans can help us take the brand to bold new places. The 3 winners, Brock from Michigan, Sandra from Missouri, and Kajal from Kentucky, visited Taco Bell headquarters in Irvine to see their creations come to life. The Crunch Wrap swaps in steak and adds seasoned fries and guacamole to the classic Crunch Wrap shell. That sounds delicious. The Vegetarian Burrito Bliss, features seasoned rice, refried beans, pico de gallo, fiesta strips, and avocado ranch all together. Sandra's Cantina Craze adds jalapeno sauce, lettuce and tomatoes, and sour cream to the Cantina Crispy Chicken Taco. That sounds great also. Okay, I like 2 or 3 of these. So Brock added, I kept seeing people in California add fries to their burritos, so one day I tried it in the Crunch Wrap instead, and it just worked. The fan style feature allows Taco Bell Rewards members to customize orders, name their creations, and share them with other users through the app. The company developed the program as a way to formalize the decades-old practice of customers remixing menu items. Codgel said she couldn't believe her casual customization made it to the national menu. The 3 items are available only through the Taco Bell app and at participating location kiosks while supplies last. Meanwhile, last but not least, GameStop has announced Trade Anything Day, but here's what they won't take in trade. Wait, if it's Trade Anything Day, how can you have things you won't take in trade? That makes no sense. It kind of defeats the purpose of the entire thing. So for those of you not in the gamer world, a huge reason these places are still in business is because people like to trade old games for new games or old games for old games. So for one day, that's December 6th, they get to trade almost anything and get some money towards video games, consoles, and so much more. While they typically allow anything, the items must fit a 20 by 20 by 20 measuring box, and employees have discretion to reject any items. So I guess if you bring in a scratched game, they're not going to take it. Also, they won't take hazardous waste or material or chemicals and liquids, lithium-ion batteries, weapons and animal, dead or alive animals, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or pharmaceuticals. Question: what happened that you had to come up with this list? What did people try to trade in instead of video games or video game consoles that you go, sorry guys, we can't take weapons or ammo anymore or hazardous waste anymore? That's going to do it for us today. If you're not my friends, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.